Hello, Leominsterites. This is your state representative, Natalie Higgins, coming to you for what is our kickoff episode of the 2022 year. So happy New Year. I'm hoping that 2022 is looking a whole lot brighter for you all. And for this episode, we really wanted to talk about all that has been happening in 2021 and some very helpful resources that I'm hoping you or someone you might know may need. And so these are kind of our top hits of 2021 heading into 2022. And I'm filming this in my district office and right downtown in Leominster in the Gallagher building on Church Street. And continuing with the theme of this is kind of a me and Isabel production. We're going to try some technology. I'm going to try to do some slide sharing so that I can get some resources to you as quickly as possible. And I'm hoping that this episode is helpful. So let's get going with the screen share and see if I can pull off this technology. The perks of a remote world is that we're able to do this, and our friends at the Leominster TV studios are still able to help get this out to you. But I'm hoping that these slides are going to be helpful. And on most of the slides, we have our contact information, but whenever you need our help, you can reach us at our Leominster office, 978-227-5278, or shoot me an email at natalie.higgins@mahouse.gov. And so the thing that everyone is thinking about, COVID. And this is the first week of data this past week that we saw a decline in cases. So thank you to everyone who's doing all that they can to kind of protect yourselves and your neighbors. Unfortunately, the positivity rate is still above 20%. And so while we're starting to see the case counts come down, we're still seeing a really high positivity rate. And so we've got to do everything that we can to mask up, to get ahead of this Omicron variant and the surge that we're in that really is putting a tremendous strain on all of our healthcare workers and our hospitals. So anything that you can do to continue masking up, get boosted, anything that we can do to get ahead of this, we're hoping that we will finally be able to get a spring with some semblance of normalcy. So keep up the good work. I'm hoping that later this week we'll have the new data that shows a continued decline in cases. But for now, we're still really high. We're still higher than we've been in a long time. You can see this data goes back to July of last year, and we're just really in the thick of it still. So for those of you who may have unluckily contracted COVID and you need some time off to get yourself better, to quarantine, to help a sick family member, there's still the COVID-19 temporary emergency paid sick leave program. So please take advantage of it. There's information here. If you've applied, you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We do know that there are Leominster residents taking advantage of this, and it's there for you. We want to make sure that you're getting the financial assistance you need to get through this pandemic. Unemployment, we cannot say it enough. We continue to hear from a handful of people every week who are still struggling with their unemployment benefits. If you or someone you know is still on hold for benefits, is getting a letter that they're trying to take back benefits that the Department of Unemployment is saying were given to you when you weren't eligible, please reach out to us. We want to be able to connect you with the information that you need. We're hearing from too many people who are still having trouble with their unemployment, and it's okay. If it's been a week and you haven't seen your benefits, that is early enough to give us a heads up that something is wrong. We don't want you waiting until you're in some real hardship before that benefit is figured out. We know the system has been really overloaded, and we want to make sure that we're able to help advocate to make sure it gets resolved as quickly as possible. Sometimes it's as simple as an identity verification issue. Sometimes it's more complicated, but we're happy to get to the bottom of what it is and try to build better communication with the unemployment system. Rental assistance. This is an unbelievably helpful program before the pandemic, and we boosted the funding tremendously. If you are behind on your rent, please reach out. to RCAP Solutions or CMHA. Those are the two agencies that administer RAFT for the region. If you have outstanding RAFT applications and you're not quite sure what's going on, you haven't gotten your assistance yet, it's delayed, you can also reach out to us and we're happy to help figure out what's going on and what's holding up that application. These are resources that are incredibly vital to Leominster residents all across the Commonwealth, and we want to make sure that you're able to take advantage of these programs because we know how many people are hurting with the affordability or lack of affordability of their housing right now. So if this can be of assistance to you, they can cover up to 3 months of rental assistance, and sometimes depending on you and your family situation, they could cover an additional 3 months. So this is a huge resource, and we want to make sure that you're taking advantage of it. Food access. The Food Source Hotline can help you sign up for SNAP benefits and HIP, the Healthy Incentives Program that comes along with SNAP, most commonly known as food stamps. You can sign up Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And this hotline can assist families in 180 different languages. 1-800-645-8333. This is so important to us because in Leominster, only half of the families who are eligible for SNAP actually take advantage of it. Something we call the SNAP gap. It's something we're working to fix. And it's incredibly important. These are resources that are available to you. And we want to make sure that you're taking advantage of it. And I cannot talk about the Healthy Incentives Program enough. It's additional resources for you to be able to use on fresh produce. It helps our farmers locally. It is a win-win for everyone, and it gets fresh produce in the hands of so many Massachusetts residents. If you have any questions, reach out to the Food Source Hotline or reach out to us. A lot of these issues that we've been talking about, something that kind of got lost in the beginning of the pandemic is Community Legal Aid opened a permanent office in Fitchburg to serve North County residents right before the pandemic really hit. And something that is a tremendous resource is Tuesdays and Thursdays, they have walk-in appointments available. They're at 515 Main Street in Fitchburg, Mass, right downtown. And they can help. They have an elder unit. That is where I have some experience working when I was in law school, doing one of my co-ops with the elder law unit. So I saw firsthand how much they help with folks' Social Security benefits, with health insurance, so many different things. They have a lot of different units. They've been helping so many of our Leominster residents through an evictions process or housing mediation. There's so many services, but if you're looking for legal assistance, this is free legal assistance for elders over the age of 60. And then for other families and individuals, depending on their income limits, but you can reach out to them, see if you qualify, especially if you're looking for a civil legal assistance, this is your place to go. And then the other piece of our 2021 is the start of a new legislative session. And for the new session, it's the 192nd session of the Massachusetts Legislature. We're working on 35 bills, 35 different pieces of legislation covering sexual and domestic violence services and protections, affordable and accessible public higher education, mental health access with a particular focus on youth, homelessness, animal protections. There are so many different amazing bills that we're working on, and a couple that we're really excited that we're teaming up with Leominster residents. So this is a really exciting part of the year as we transition into the second year of a 2-year legislative session. This is when the bulk of the legislative work gets done. Over 6,300 pieces of legislation were filed at the start of the legislative session. That's a lot of bills to sift through. And in Massachusetts, something that I used to take for granted, but don't anymore, we are guaranteed a public hearing on every single piece of legislation filed at the beginning of a legislative session. That is something in so many other states that alone is a fight. And so we're really thankful. We've just wrapped up our last hearing on our very last piece of legislation. And we're heading into something, the new part of the session with a joint Rule 10 coming up very shortly. And that's a rule that the House and the Senate agree upon, that the bills need to be reported out of their first committee to keep moving for the rest of the session. So we're finding out what legislation is moving forward. We're finding out which legislation is being sent to study, which means we've kind of got to get back to work to figure out how to move it forward in the next session. But Isabel and I are hard at work on a number of pieces of legislation that have moved forward that we're really excited and we'll be talking more about in future episodes. If you have any questions, if you have any bills that you're really passionate about, please email me and make sure that they're on our priority watch list so we can be keeping tabs on them as the bills get reported from committee over the next week. I'm lucky that I get to serve on 5 committees this session. I'm vice chair of the Committee on Public Service in the House. And this is my very first time serving on this committee, which looks at kind of all of the different ways that public employees are impacted by legislature when it comes to health insurance access, when it comes to retirement benefits. And so it's a very busy bill. And through this, I'm also serving on the Civil Service Commission, looking at the ways that we can reform and improve and strengthen the civil service system that oversees the hiring and promotional process for a lot of our police departments, fire departments, and the state police. I also serve on the Joint Committee on Ways and Means and the House Committee on Ways and Means, which oversees all of the bills that have a cost to the Commonwealth. If they are not healthcare related and heading over to healthcare financing, they come to us at Ways and Means. And so we're just getting ready at the start of the new session, the new year, on the FY23 budget. So there will be many, many updates, but we're just getting to dig in to the governor's budget, which was released at the end of January. And we're getting to work on our House version of the budget. It's also my first time on the Joint Committee on Children, Families, and Persons with Disabilities. It's an area that I care deeply about. I'm really thankful to the speaker for allowing me to serve on this committee and get to really dig into a lot of these issues that are really heavy. And it's my 3rd term on the Joint Committee on Mental Health, Substance Use, and Recovery, an issue area that I care deeply about, as you can see from the legislation that I file around youth mental health care access and education access. It is another set of bills that have very, very, very personal stories. And I'm really thankful for the opportunity to hear the testimony of Massachusetts residents to try to figure out how do we make this healthcare system a system, and how do we make sure that we're really shining a light on mental health needs in our community. COVID opened a lot of doors, especially with access to telehealth, that removed some of the barriers around accessing mental health care, but we've got to make sure that we continue that progress and we continue making sure that mental health care is destigmatized and treated just as seriously as our physical health. We're getting ready for a budget, but just to highlight some of the things that we were able to accomplish in last year's state budget. $50,000 for the Spanish American Center for expanding and supporting their mobile food pantry project, $50,000 for Growing Places to expand equitable access to healthy food and environmental sustainability with education, collaboration, and advocacy, $50,000 to the city of Leominster to help support the planning for a new elevator in the Leominster Senior Center, and $100,000 for the Leominster Police Department for a mental health counselor. All incredibly important projects that we are very, very thrilled that the state and all of our colleagues agreed to prioritize, and thankful for the partnership in Senator Cronin to be able to get these into the final package. An issue near and dear to my heart is sexual violence services. And at the beginning of last year, I worked with some investigative reporters at WCVB Channel 5 around an issue of an untested backlog of rape kits, 6,300 rape kits spanning 20 years that hadn't been fully tested by the crime laboratory. We're happy to say that the House took this as a priority and made sure that we reappropriated the funds. And we've been working with the crime laboratory and the district attorney's offices and local rape crisis centers to make sure that we come up with a plan that works for all of our members of the Commonwealth who have had these sexual assault evidence kits collected, but that they were never tested. This is something that should have never happened. And thankfully, because of new tracking legislation, it won't happen again. But this is kind of an ongoing policy priority, making sure that this gets done right, that we've been working on nearly the entire time that I've been in the state legislature. And I think we're finally at a place where there's a path forward and these kits are going to be tested. And we're really thankful to all of the advocates across the Commonwealth who brought this to light and made sure that we weren't going to leave these survivors behind. We were able to partner with Congressman Jim McGovern, our US Senators, Ed Markey and Elizabeth Warren on ARPA funding. And in addition to a lot of statewide funding that Leominster is going to be able to take a part in these competitive bids, we were able to get earmarks for some particularly important projects here across Leominster. So for our schools, it's $150,000 for water filtration updates, $100,000 for HVAC upgrades at Bennett School, $100,000 for an early education center feasibility study. You may know that our youngest students are actually educated in some of our oldest buildings. And I'm really thankful for Superintendent Deacon's focus on trying to explore, is an early ed center the right move to make sure that we are bringing all of our students, youngest students, into one facility, state-of-the-art facility, with the physical capabilities that their teachers and their staff need to really support these families as they start in their public education. And $300,000 to replace portable classrooms at our elementary schools. Unfortunately, COVID exacerbated kind of those space needs of making sure that we were able to safely space our students and our staff in our buildings. And some of our portable classrooms are decades old. And so in order to continue to meet the needs of all of our students, this was an incredibly important priority for Leominster. And we were able to get $250,000 for the city of Leominster in support of the repair of Monoostock Brook, an incredibly important project right downtown that desperately needs the funds so that we can repair the brook once and for all. And a personal exciting project is I've been teaming up with some environmental advocates with State Rep Mike Kushmarek in our neighboring Fitchburg and Senator Brennan Crichton in a fellow Gateway City of Lynn on a green initiative pilot. This is a piece of legislation that we introduced, Gateway Cities, renewable, efficient, and electrified neighborhoods with the goal of retrofitting existing low and moderate income housing. And while this was a bill we filed at the beginning of the session, we were able to together secure $6.5 million on a pilot program with those same ARPA funds to really make sure that our low income and moderate income families across the Commonwealth, particularly in gateway cities like Leominster and Fitchburg, have access to green retrofits to make sure that we're reducing utility costs and with the hopes of completely removing utility costs, because this is good for the environment, it's good for our families, and will help keep people in their homes as long as they want to keep their homes. So we'll have more news on how this project is rolling out over the next few months. Also in 2021, we all completed the census, and thank you, Leominster residents, for having such strong participation in the census. Our population increased by 7.4% over the last decade. And here's some information about kind of how those demographics have changed in the city. And with that means our district will stay the same. So many of my colleagues, the 160 state reps and the 40 state senators, are seeing some changes to their districts, including State Senator John Cronin, whose district is moving a little bit more east. With the population declines, you can see those darker, redder numbers in Western Mass. The districts really had to shift, and we have 2 brand new state rep districts in majority minority communities. And this is a really important opportunity for Leominster to continue to make sure that their voice is being heard. And I'm thankful that our district gets to be one of the few districts that is one community in its entirety, because we need to make sure that our voices are being heard across the Commonwealth. And so this is a little glimpse into the new legislative districts. So every 10 years, our districts get redrawn. And I'm thankful that we're, again, one of the handful of districts that gets to continue to have one advocate for their entire community. And I don't have to worry about any of our neighboring towns, although a lot of our needs are similar. It's really special to be able to be a state representative where I represent just the voices of the city of Leominster. Legislative wins. We passed the Student Loan Borrower Bill of Rights early in 2021 at the end of the last legislative session. And it has been in effect for 6 months now. And in those first 6 months, the Student Loan Ombudsman has heard from hundreds of student loan borrowers having issues with their student loans. This is only going to go up because for the majority of the pandemic, student loan borrowers with federal student loan debt have had their loans on pause. So if you are worried about having your loans restarting in May, if you have questions, if you have problems with the public service loan forgiveness program, which has had a lot of changes to make it stronger at the federal level and easier to access, please reach out to the Office of Attorney General Maura Healey, their Student Loan Ombudsman's office. If you have any questions, we're happy to connect you with them. And fast forwarding to just the last few weeks, we were actually able to pass a second bill related to the student loan debt crisis, an act prohibiting license revocation for student loan default. This was a refiled bill, a bill that I've been working on for the last few sessions, and it impacts the nearly 1 million student loan borrowers across the Commonwealth. Together, we carry $35 billion in student loan debt. It is a huge burden on our economy. But in Massachusetts law, we were one of the remaining dozen states that allowed you to lose your professional license because you default on your student loan debt. Well, that is incredibly punitive and makes it that much harder for someone to be able to continue to repay their student loan debt and work in their career. So I'm really thankful to team up on this bipartisan legislation with some Republican colleagues, including Dave Moradian from Southwestern County, to pass this legislation in the House. It's on to the Senate, so we've got a little bit more work to do, but it really is making sure that we're not penalizing our workers who fall behind on their student loan debt by taking away that one ability to repay their student loans, their job. So making sure that we're protecting them. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, or if you have anyone who's facing some of these challenges, please reach out to us. We'd love to connect them with resources. So we're headed into 2022, and it's a busy session with a budget, with more federal funds coming to the state and hopefully to the District of Leominster. We have so many things going on in 2022. Thank you for tuning in for this recap of the last year. If you have any questions, if any of these resources are ones that you want to get connected with, please connect with us. You can call us at 978-227-5278, or you can email us at natalie.higgins@mahouse.gov. I am so thankful that you took the time to tune into this episode, and I'm wishing you all as pain-free of a winter as possible. I'm hoping that you get to enjoy and have a much brighter 2022. Thank you for tuning in.